Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this quarter's edition of Town Hall Tuesday. Tonight's subject is the municipal budget, and I'm your host, Ted Chin. I work in the city manager's office, and we're going to talk a little bit about the budget. I know it's a dry subject, but we're going to try and make it as entertaining as possible. Before we get started, I want to briefly touch base on the city manager's philosophy or focus when it comes to your money. Is our credibility is everything. And so our performance plus our accountability to you as taxpayer and a transparency and engagement like we're doing today with the town hall meeting, to us equals trust. It helps build and maintain the public trust. And we're working in a framework where we're trying to solicit more public input on knowing what kind of services you expect and what you want. We begin with this with town hall meetings such as the one tonight. We're going to be getting into focus groups in the future, citizen committees. We've had a couple of those already. And we're going to be starting our first scientific survey that will reach 6,000 households in the next couple of months coming up. And that's well over 10% of the residents of Mesquite. We'll take that information and further refine the council's policies and what their goals are for the coming year, in the near term as well as the long term. And then hopefully we'll take that and align our own department goals with those goals. And then we allocate the resources, which is where we are in the cycle right now with budget phase. So before we get started on the budget, I want to touch base on some of those goals and what we've accomplished in the last 18 months. In the area of public safety, the city has increased the number of crime watch groups, and the participation among those groups continues to hold steady. With addition of our neighborhood vitality division, we will further enhance these efforts by providing a better support structure for these groups. This new division will help with the organization, the communication, and planning of neighborhood meetings going forward. This support system will ensure that any neighborhood group is able to continue beyond its initial organization phase and continue its momentum going forward. The division will also allow for our crime prevention officers more time to work with those groups that may need a little more help getting started. This new division will be responsible for organizing our very first Citizen Summit, which is scheduled to be held earlier in the spring of this coming year. This half-day event will bring neighborhood groups together and give them the skills and knowledge to be better leaders. The goal of this program is to have fully trained leaders in each crime watch group or neighborhood group in our community. This past spring, the city manager, Mr. Cliff Kahili, met with all employees in our field services divisions to encourage them to play an active role in the appearance and condition of our community. They are now empowered to be an extra set of eyes out there in the neighborhoods, and are encouraged to report any suspicious behavior or look for things that are out of place. We plan to follow up on this initiative with additional communication and more specialized training in at least 2 times a year going forward. With the help of Councilman Alleman, we have formed a Spanish-speaking language only crime watch group, and our police chief, Chief Cato, has initiated a Spanish language education program to help police officers in communicating with our residents. Hopefully you've gone to our website and you've seen some initial efforts of our combined public safety videos. Driver safety and fireworks created another great opportunity for our officers to participate in public safety messages. And every few months from now on, we will produce new videos on various public safety topics. For neighborhood appearance, environmental code and building inspection began the year with a more aggressive approach. We realigned our code districts to allow more staff time in areas with the greatest need. Citations have more than doubled in the first 2 quarters of the year, and the number of complaints has begun to decrease. We've also fully implemented a new software program that has provided information and necessary tools to give our inspectors while they're out in the field. They're now able to spend more time in the neighborhoods communicating with residents. The T25 program, if you haven't heard about that one, continues to not only impact our targeted properties, but has also developed new and improved processes for enforcement. T25, it's a list of the highest priority of properties that are, they're habitual code problems. And it could not just...
So we're talking 25 top.
Exactly. We're going after the more chronic problems first and focusing our attention on that and trying to address those issues more aggressive.
This is my first time doing these things. Can we ask questions?
You bet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Before you said you could issue more citations, what's the compliance with those citations? Has that also improved?
I believe it has. I don't have those statistics at hand, but I do know that code enforcement generally gets between 75% and 90% voluntary compliance within the second notice, but that's pretty typical. Yes, sir.
Questions as you go along.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Increased effectiveness of environmental code programs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not allergic to mics. They have a program where citizens can be involved with code, not code enforcement, but reporting. Mm-hmm. But they only train once a year. Yes. And seems like they never respond back to me concerning the training, or the training just happened, or I don't know when the next training is. Right. It seems to me if somebody is interested in that, Mike could do that twice a year.
Sure.
Once a quarter.
Yeah.
Or maybe I need to update my calendar.
Well, you're speaking of our Code Ambassador program, and it is ongoing, and I'm sure if you go to our website, you can find more information out there. However, this is being recorded, and we'll reach out to you to get you more involved. Okay. Many of our target properties have shown a reduction in criminal activity as well, and most property owners that we make contact with are quickly elevating the condition of their property. The T25 has also resulted in demolition of several structures, and we have demolition permits currently pending for several other properties. Again, I'm just going over a recap of some of the highlights of these council goals that they established a couple of years ago. For job creation, our Economic Development Office has spearheaded the BRE program, or Business Retention and Expansion Program. This collaborative effort between the city, the school district, Eastfield College, and Workforce Solutions, as well as our own Chamber of Commerce, hosted a very successful business leader event this past spring, which not only brought businesses and business leaders together, but also resulted in significant data being gathered, which we'll use in future business retention efforts. BRE is also bringing their team approach to the attraction of new businesses to the community. Earlier this year, we completed a citizen-led visioning exercise for downtown Mesquite. This was an essential first step in helping guide the future redevelopment of the greater downtown area. Armed with this vision, the community will organize and develop incentive programs for property owners and business owners who wish to expand their businesses in the downtown area. We'll also seek out businesses that meet the vision plan goals to bring even more people into the downtown area. We will also be developing a long-term capital improvement plan for downtown and begin identifying funding sources to make these improvements and initiatives over time.
One of the things on that survey, I took that survey, but they didn't define downtown. So it's like,
right.
What street box are we talking about?
Right. Well, that was part of the whole process of creating the vision, was to establish different people had different concepts of what downtown meant to them. And so they came up with like 3 zones, one being the core area, and then there's another zone that captures pretty much what most people think of downtown. And then there's a broader area that goes beyond downtown as far as City Lake Park, where future development could occur and link things together. It was really a vision setting process. The meat is down the road, and it's coming. It'll take a while to get all this into place.
Is City Hall part of downtown?
Depends on your point of view.
Consider all the way up here, just because of what you just said.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But others say it stops at railroad, something.
Well, and others say it's the square around the bank,
Yeah.
What is downtown?
I think in 40 years, it could be. Could well be. You never know. With shopping center revitalization is one of those areas that's taken a little more time and effort to get underway. This spring, staff met with several shopping center property owners in an effort to begin building critical relationships and gathering interest in redevelopment efforts. We know that having partnerships with these property owners is vital for any successful renovation efforts going forward. We've also begun an economic study for the I-30 corridor to help identify potential uses along that corridor and areas adjacent to I-30. This year, we will complete an inventory of shopping centers and develop funding options and evaluate visibility of our targeted centers for redevelopment. Speaking of the I-20 corridor, just like the downtown visioning process, we just completed a citizen stakeholder visioning process where they came together and created a vision for the future of the I-20 corridor. This is in terms of significant growth, this is the future of Mesquite. And city staff believes that we're heading in the right direction and that we have property owners energized. We will complete the process and develop an identity or brand, if you will, and then begin marketing the area for commercial and residential development. We'll also work with property owners to begin land use planning in the area to help attract new development that fits the overall vision for the corridor.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
Is the city of Mesquite planning on doing some annexation?
That's to be determined, but
We don't touch I-20.
Well, yes,
well, we do.
We actually did have, over the last 12 years, we've annexed twice, and we go all the way out to, I believe, 741.
Mhm.
And plus, we have more land. It depends on who you ask. There's some council members that tell you absolutely we'll take it all, but it has to be strategic.
Yeah. Small business retention. This year we continued our outreach to small businesses through our longstanding partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. We participated in a meeting to educate business owners on all of the resources available to them. We also produced another round of videos that the mayor can attest to for Small Business Week, highlighting several unique businesses in our town. Our economic development manager has also visited numerous small business owners as part of her retention efforts. Sharing our story, that's part of what tonight is all about. We have made substantial progress in sharing our story with citizens by utilizing a variety of resources, from Facebook posts highlighting programs and services to multi-week campaigns highlighting driver safety and fireworks issues. Our outreach efforts continue to grow. Regular reporting on police activity and road construction projects continue to spotlight many of the council's goals on a regular basis. Improving our minority citizen involvement has begun by updating and improving our communication platforms. With dual language flyers and signage, we have been able to communicate with our Spanish-speaking population. Beginning in January, we'll update our monthly newsletter, the Mainstream, that newsletter you get in your water bill each month, to a dual language publication. Through better educational materials, we can improve our efforts to have a more engaged Spanish-speaking population. We recognize that there are many challenges with this goal and still need to be overcome, and our efforts will need to be ongoing in order for it to be successful. We are able to kick off a number of long-awaited infrastructure projects this past year. In addition to Town East Boulevard, Gus Thomason Road, and Motley Drive reconstruction projects, as well as the recent residential street bond program, we will continue to address our aging infrastructure with overlays and point repairs utilizing a variety of methods. Working with the Streets Department, we have expanded the number of projects through a more efficient scheduling and providing better equipment to our crews. We have also begun the process to evaluate our infrastructure, and this year we'll be adding a software solution to help track repairs and deferred maintenance over time in order to better plan out our future projects. In the area of retail activity, we have begun the process to identify necessary partners in the Town East area. With the current level of development, focus is still on several expansion projects. We have commitments from several representatives to participate in the long-range look at the area in order to keep the area competitive in the marketplace. So as you can see, the city has made a lot of progress in the past 18 months, but there's always room for improvement, and we certainly have a lot of things to do. As the city looks forward to a new budget year, there are three guiding principles that guide our efforts. One is to maintain a focus on the City Council goals and priorities. The second is to maintain a strong financial condition. Now that the recession is over, we have the opportunity to build up our reserves so that we can weather the next downturn in the economy. And third is to become a data-driven organization. Our finance director, Ms. Debbie Moll, will now provide a brief overview of our budget process and how we allocate resources and prioritize expenditures in order to help illustrate what we do with your hard-earned tax dollars. Debbie?
Okay, thank you, Ted, for that update, and thank you for coming tonight. I'm just curious, first off, how many of you were here at last year's Town Hall Tuesday budget discussion? So a few of you, so we'll see if you do, how well you do on the polling questions this year. So anyway, you'll notice that our budget process is a full year cycle. So in January, February, the budget office begins the budget process by putting together staffing levels and the target budget numbers for the departments. Then the departments get involved through March and April as they're truing up any of their line items that have annual increases, like for maintenance type items, and then submitting any budget offers that they might have for the new budget year, the upcoming budget year. Then in May and June, the budget office takes over again and compiles all that information, putting everything together for the city manager. The city manager then reviews the baseline budget and determines what he will present to council as a starting point for the budget process. Now, where you as citizens get involved is in July, August, and September. During those months, the City Council will schedule several public hearings where you as citizens are encouraged to come and voice your opinion about the budget. What kind of programs would you like to see added or, focused on in the next year? If there are budget offers on the table, you could give your input in regards to those budget offers, what you like or what you don't like. You can do that through the public hearings. You could also do that one-on-one with your council members. You could contact any one of them at any time to ask them questions or give your input about the budget process. So then the budget is approved in September, so that we can start our new fiscal year on October 1. So the budget is approved in September each year. Then the budget office takes over again October through December. They're preparing this budget document, which we don't print many of these nowadays, but this is available on the city's website. And I will say, and I'm an accounting numbers guru, crazy person, but there's a lot of good information in any city's budget document that tells you about that city's overall operation. So it's a good resource of information, and it is available on the city's website, even the prior years. So that's just a little tidbit of information for you. So that's the overall budget cycle for the city of Mesquite. And almost any city in Texas has that same cycle.
Can I ask you an overall question?
Yes.
July, August, and September, right now, is that projected for 2019?
That would be right now. We have our first public hearing for this budget year. For 2018's budget year, the first public hearing is August 7th, Monday, August 7th. So, and then there'll be 3 that are going to be held, the 7th, the 21st, and then the first Monday in September. I guess it's a Tuesday because of Labor Day.
October 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so what the budget that we're working on right now is fiscal year 18. So October 1, 17 through September 30th, 18. So we really approve the budget right before we're getting ready to start using it. So, and that's the normal cycle for most cities in Texas. Did that answer your question? Okay, thank you. Okay, so city services are really a return of investment that you make through property taxes, sales taxes, and users' fees. The users' fees would be where you're paying for your sanitation or garbage collection fees, if you get involved in any recreation fees of the programs that are offered at the city. So the vital city services are made available by your investment through these different means, property taxes, sales tax, and users' fees. So because it's your money, it's important that you understand how this money is allocated amongst the city's operations, and that's what we're going to look at tonight. So first off, the city really, we budget for things, our operations, in 5 different categories, 5 different types of funds. The general fund is where the city operations, the main things, the main services that you as citizens utilize are housed in the general fund. Public safety, police, fire, streets, library, parks and recreation, things like that. The enterprise funds, we at the city, we have 4 different enterprise funds. This is water sewer operations, the Drainage Utility District Fund, the airport operations, and the golf course. Now, they're called enterprise funds because the revenues generated for the service provided are intended to cover the cost of those operations. So we don't mix property tax revenues, general fund type services with water sewer operations or drainage operations. We're required to keep those operations separate. The enterprise activities should be self-supporting. That's why we put them in their own individual funds. So it's better that it's accounted for that way. Now, special revenue funds, this is where we account for money that has a specific purpose. And usually this money is restricted into how we can use it. So there we're required to keep track of it in a separate fund. This would be programs like the housing program here in Mesquite or the community development block grant programs, where grant money especially is in special revenue funds. We're required to use it specifically for what that grant is intended for. Or like our 4B sales tax. You know, we have an extra amount of sales tax for 4B. That is to be used for economic development. So we have to account for that in a special revenue fund so it's not mixed with anything else. Internal service funds here at the city, we have 2 internal service funds. This is where we're facilitating charges to various city departments like healthcare cost or general liability cost, where every city department, whether they're part of the water sewer fund or general fund, they get a charge from that internal service fund. It's just a way for us to track that money and charge it out to the departments accordingly. And the last category is the debt service fund. That is where the city is required to set money aside to pay next year's bond or debt principal and interest payments. So we have to set that money aside and make sure we have it there to make those payments. So those are the 5 different major fund categories that we budget for here at the city of Mesquite. So this slide here gives you the big picture, and we're showing you fiscal year 2016 actual numbers. So here, this is all of the funds that are budgeted, so $230 million. This was the actual budget from 2016. You can see that the general fund makes up the majority of that. It's 45.8% of the total big picture of the city of Mesquite. The enterprise make up a total of 26.1% of the overall. Special revenue funds are 13.2%. The internal service funds I talked about are about 9.1% of the total picture. And then the debt service fund is 5.8%. So we're going to look in more detail at the general fund because that's where I said most of the services that you are using and involved in are in the general fund operations. So this chart shows you the general fund revenue sources. And as you can see, property taxes are 35.7% and sales tax 30.5%. So the total of those 2 revenue sources makes up 66.2% of all the revenues coming into the general fund. Another big category, of course, is charges for services. And then all the other ones there line up as far as gross receipts, transfers in, fines and forfeitures, these other categories that make up revenues coming into the general fund to support those services that you as citizens need to live here in the city of Mesquite. So now you get to practice on your polling. So get out your smartphones again. And this is your first question, your first real question besides the TV shows. So how much of your total property tax bill as a homeowner in the city of Mesquite do you think goes to the city of Mesquite? Okay, so how much of your total property tax bill goes to the city of Mesquite? We'll see how you all fare on that one. Okay, everybody good? Okay, let's see how you did. So it looks like everybody's kind of voting for the bottom there. Some are switching their answer. The answer is, most of you were right, less than 25% of your property taxes goes to the city of Mesquite. The rest goes to, because you might think, wow, the city charges us a lot. It's not just the city. The majority of it goes to the MISD, the school district, as you can see here. The rest of your property tax bill that comes from the county You get two property tax bills if you live in Mesquite. You get the cities, which is city and school, and you get the county. So, but you can see the majority goes to the school district, then the city, and then the county's element there, the three categories for the county. So you were right on that one. So since property taxes are such a large revenue source, let's talk about that. Let's talk about our property tax bills. So this chart shows you the taxable value. So you know the property tax revenues come in as a result of applying the tax rate to the taxable value of commercial and residential properties in the city of Mesquite. So if you're a homeowner, you know that you get a property tax valuation statement for your property every year. So this chart shows you that prior to the recession, our highest taxable value year was $6.39 billion. This is in billions of dollars of taxable value. That was the highest point in 2009. Then the recession came, and our values declined. And then we didn't finally surpass that again until this current tax year. That was the first time since 2009 that we went back above that highest level for taxable values. So that was helpful to the city of Mesquite. This chart shows you the percentage change from one year to the next of those taxable values. Now, I will say, when we looked at ourselves compared to other cities, we rebounded slowly from the recession. Some of the other comparable cities rebounded a lot quicker than Mesquite. Finally, this year, this current tax year, we saw a good jump. Last summer, when we got our certified roll for the tax bills that went out in October, we had a 9.63% increase in value. That helps us just to be able to have good quality services for you, because if our revenues are declining, we have to either cut services or, try to figure out how we're going to survive as a city without raising the tax rate. So we're estimating this year that our values will increase about the same as last year. That's the news that we're getting from the appraisal district. Now keep in mind, the city staff does not set your taxable value. It's the Dallas Central Appraisal District, or if you live in Kaufman, it's Kaufman Central Appraisal District. The city staff does not establish your appraised values. It's the appraisal districts that do that. And that's the way Texas works, the state of Texas. So I wanted to show you this slide because this is good news for Mesquite. You'll see this is what the certified roll tells us came in as new construction in the city of Mesquite. This is in millions of dollars. So you can see in 2009 it was a good year. We had $131 million of new construction. Then the recession hit, and that went down and it declined. And this year is finally about triple what it was last year in new construction. So we have good things going on in Mesquite, a lot of good development going on, and that's reflected in the certified roll. So that's new stuff for the city of Mesquite. That's good news for Mesquite. This slide shows you our tax rate history. So we've talked about the taxable value. You could see the change in the values decreasing through the recession and going back up. Well, the city of Mesquite, we have not had a tax rate increase since 2008. Now remember, we've talked about this before in maybe in other meetings. The tax rate for the city is comprised of two components: maintenance and operations, and what they call interest and sinking funds. That's really debt, principal, and interest payments. So we have to calculate every year how much of our tax rate is going to pay for the principal and interest on the outstanding debt of the city versus how much of the tax rate are we using for maintenance and operations. The city has not increased the maintenance and operations portion of the tax rate since 2008 and even last year. The increase this year that you had in your tax bill was, if you'll recall, in the fall of 2016, you as voters approved a $125 million street bond election so that we could repair and improve and rehab about 100 miles of residential streets, very needed in the city of Mesquite for many years. But the property tax rate increase was for that debt side of the equation. It wasn't for maintenance and operations. So, and that's holding true for this year. At this point, there isn't proposed a tax rate increase. When the street bonds were elected, it approved a 9.7-cent tax rate increase. We split that between 2 years. The first year was this year, 2017. The second part of that will be in 2019. So that's how, yes?
So if nothing changes, it goes back to 64 cents in 19?
No, it'll still be It'll still stay at, it has to stay at 68.7, and then it'll go up another 4.7 in 2019 to whatever that 72 point, whatever that would be. It has to stay at that level until those 20-year bonds are paid off. Yeah. So it's a long commitment. The street bonds are 125 million. We're issuing 25 million every other year for 10 years. And I'll show you a slide in a minute of what we're doing with that money and how quickly we're working through that project. But the bonds are 20-year bonds, so that's a 20-year commitment on that tax rate for the debt side. Okay? Now, if property values and new development just went crazy in Mesquite, then a council may decide we don't need that large of a tax rate increase. We still can put aside how much we need to pay the debt, but we have so much new construction or we have so much new value coming in, we don't need to increase it as much. It's not that they have to, it's that you as the voters are saying, if you need to, we're authorizing you to increase it that much. So, yes.
What is our total debt for the city of Mesquite?
I'm going to show you that in a slide, in a couple of slides, okay? So good question. Okay, so that's the tax rate. And I show you that now. This is the tax rate of our comparable cities, other cities in the surrounding area. So you see Plano has the lowest tax rate. Mesquite is on the higher end. But I don't want you to be fooled by this because you've got to look at more than just the tax rate, okay? So the next slide here shows you the average home taxable value. So notice that, yeah, Plano has the lowest tax rate, but they also have the highest average home taxable value. That's the average person's home is valued at $326,000, where Mesquite's is $95,000. So what does that mean for us in Mesquite? Well, because of this, other area communities tend to have lower tax rates. So notice the tax rates are in the black on the bar. And then the number above reflects what does 1 penny of tax generate in each of these other communities based on their average home taxable value. So you can see, even though Plano has the lowest tax rate per $100 of valuation, 1 penny in Plano generates $3.1 million, where 1 penny of tax in Mesquite generates only $596,000. So although Plano has the lowest tax rate, they generate a lot more money, a lot more revenue by 1 penny. So look at this next slide. So because it doesn't mean that they pay less in taxes in their tax bill. So you have to look at what is the average home annual city tax bill for each of these cities. So although Plano had the lowest tax rate, they have the highest annual city tax bill for the average homeowner in Plano. Their average annual home city tax bill is $1,248, where Mesquite's is at the lower end of $657. So you've got to look at all those elements when you're talking about tax rate. You've got to look at the average taxable value and how that correlates to the revenues that can be generated in those communities. So that tells you why we kind of have to balance this and decide what do we need to set our tax rate at here in the city of Mesquite to generate the revenues needed.
Or is this also commercial property?
It's the average home value, so we're just kind of looking at the residential side. So, yeah, and then they also have, you know, whatever commercial stuff they have going on as well. And some of those areas have large industries. Okay, so here's another question for you. So, where do you think the city spends most of your tax dollars? So, these are your options. You've got A through G. So, where do you think the city spends most of your tax dollars? You have good choices going on there. Looks like we've kind of settled in. If you chose public safety, you would be correct. As you see here, police and fire, which is public safety, make up more than half of the general fund expenditures. The total general fund expenditures are about $106 million. Police and fire make up more than half of that. Now, if you chose employees' salaries and benefits, or streets and infrastructure, you would also be right. And this is how that works. More than half of the general fund is public safety, Well, within the public safety budget, 95.8% of their budget is salaries and benefits. Because think about it. What is police and fire operations? It's police officers and firefighters that are out there doing the work. It's mostly people. They have equipment that they have to use as well, but it's mostly people that make that operation happen. Salaries and benefits are $84.3 million, or 81% of the general fund. It takes people to run a city, even the street crews. You know, it takes the people to be out there repairing the streets or changing the street lights and things like that. So here's another. Yes.
Are the police officers of Mesquite, are they content in comparison to a lot of other cities?
Well, Council was just looking at this at the budget workshop last Friday. How are the police officers here paid in relation to other comparable cities in North Texas, but even in all of Texas? So, and Council knows they have maybe a little bit of work to do to bring us up, but we're not terrible in comparison. I think we have a great police department as far as the way that it's run. What we pay them is comparable, but maybe a little bit of room for improvement that Council is considering as a budget offer. So that's a good question.
Your question with the word content, how long do you have? But
Yes.
yes, we're trying to be very competitive. We're trying to be very competitive.
Yes.
And it depends on what you call competitive, because if you're talking about, well, looking at a Plano with their resources, or some other cities like that, you know, it's not always apples and apples. When you compare to comparable cities, we are well above, median or above. And when it comes to the whole Metroplex, we're getting real close to being, we are competitive.
Yes.
And the pension fund?
We are not in anywhere near any shape or form like Dallas.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I remember the state. It's the Texas state.
Texas Municipal Retirement System, which is,
So we're fine.
we have very strict guidelines that are followed by state legislation where, you know, some of the stuff in the news about Dallas is unfortunate, but we should not ever run into those situations because of the rules and guidelines that the pension plan has to follow.
If it helps you any, we have a lot of officers that retire after 20 or 25 years.
Yes. Usually, yeah. Police and fire, they stay a long time. I think it's because they are treated well here and they have the equipment and the tools to do their job well. And they're supported by council and the citizens. I think it's a good thing for Mesquite officers. So with that in mind, how much do you think it costs for one police officer? That's your next polling question. So let me pull up the possible answers for you. Okay, so here are your options. So how much does one police officer cost the city of Mesquite? Salary, getting them on board, equipment. How much does it cost to bring them on and equip them to work here at the city of Mesquite? Okay, y'all are pretty good. So let's see how you did there. Okay, so it cost $145,000 to bring on, to recruit, train, hire, equip one Mesquite police officer. And along with that, just for on the firefighter side, it cost about $100,000 to do the same for a firefighter, to hire them, train them, and equip them to come on board for the city of Mesquite. So that's why that salaries and wages portion of the budget is so high. But they're worth the investment because they bring public safety to you as citizens that live here in Mesquite. So here's another one for you. So we've talked about kind of public safety and police and fire. Well, how does the city pay for streets and other infrastructure improvements? So let's take a look at that polling question. These are your options here. How does the city pay for streets and other infrastructure improvements? Okay, the results are coming in. Okay, got a tie here. Okay, let's see what the result is. The city does issue debt in the form of municipal bonds to pay for the high cost of capital projects. So our little joke, that's bonds, not James Bond. But this is similar to how you would go about purchasing a home. You know, a lot of us can't dish out a couple $100,000 to go out and buy a home, so we get a home mortgage. The same is true with capital projects, major capital projects for city operations. Using bonds helps spread the cost of a major capital project over multiple years, so it's more manageable. We can do more projects in 1 year rather than just one big one, and the tax rate isn't going all over the place to support that. It also spreads the cost of that asset or the payment of that project over the life of the asset for all the citizens that will live in the city of Mesquite over the life of that asset. You know, the streets last 30 years. So when we reconstruct a street, you shouldn't pay for all of it today if you're not going to live here 20, 30 years from now, but it should be spread over the life of that asset. That's why bonds are issued. And usually they're a lower interest rate way of funding these projects. So it is a good way. And one other note, did you know there are over 660 miles of streets in the city, and half of them are residential? So we have a lot of streets in the city of Mesquite.
What is the city's bond rating?
Our bond rating is AA stable. So that's a very good rating for the city of Mesquite. That's a very good question. And we get rated every year. When we sell bonds every year, we get rated every year. So how much does it cost to reconstruct just 1 mile of a 4-lane street? So here are your options. So from 1 million to 10 million, or you can't count that high. 1 mile of a 4-lane street, how much does it cost to reconstruct it? Reconstruct, right. Not like just resurface, but reconstruct the street. Very interesting. Okay, you'll be interested to know the answer here, so let's see what the answer is. On this, it cost approximately $10.2 million to reconstruct 1 mile of non-residential street in Mesquite. That's like relocating the utilities, drainage, design, and construction from start to finish. $10.2 million. So you can see why the bond issues are large, and you know it costs so much to do anything, to do these capital projects. So yes.
Is that 100% concrete streets?
That would have been a concrete street, yes. Yeah.
So I live over by the Skyline Division, and you're redoing the streets to deal with the heavy load traffic there. So it costs more than that for the 1 mile that reconstruct?
Yeah, this was one mile of a 4-lane, so if that's what we're replacing there, it would be approximately that much money, yes. Or more, yes.
Can't count that high.
Yeah, you can't count that high, yes. Yeah, if it would be thicker concrete, yeah, this would just be like this would be a non-residential thoroughfare, but in those areas where we have to make it even thicker, it would cost more. Yes, good question. But it's important. If we want to attract industry and businesses in that district, we have to have good, solid streets. They don't like their trucks to fall apart when they run over the streets, so, yeah. Either, yes, yes.
What was the original question? Residential street, or was the question non-residential?
It was non-resident, 1 mile of a 4-lane street, yeah. We kind of tricked you, didn't we? Because we didn't say residential or non-residential, yes.
How is it determined what streets y'all, the city is going to reconstruct? I mean, there's so many streets.
There are. Well, this grid here actually answers that question. This shows grade 4 streets density analysis. So the streets department, the public works department, they grade the streets as to their level of deterioration. So they from 1, which is good, to poor, which is like the grade 4 streets. So if you were involved at all when we went through the street bond election, we talked a lot about the condition of the residential streets, and we were addressing the ones that are grade 4 through that street bond process. We have a lot of streets in Mesquite that need to be repaired, but we have to prioritize. We can't repair them all, as you can see by the dollar value or what it costs to do that. It's going to take us time, but we're working on it as we can, doing the worst ones first, based on the grading of the streets from the Public Works Department. So sometimes we get some of the thoroughfares that maybe involve the county or the state. Will get some assistance from them, so a project might be bumped up because we're getting half of it paid for by the county or the state. So we have to consider that as well.
Cover 80, 30, and 20, or just 30 and 20 and 635?
That would be...
That would be 80, 20, 635,
Yeah.
are all covered by the state.
State, yes.
So that permanent construction of the exit on Town East is part of the 635 construction, or is that us?
You mean the current Town East LBJ interchange?
Yeah,
That was the state that.
The one that backs up onto 635 every single day?
Yeah.
That one.
It's the state's project.
That's state?
The ramp from AE, or from LBJ southbound to eastbound USA.
Both directions off of 635 onto Town East.
On to Tony's.
Onto Town East.
Oh.
If you're getting off of 635 and you're trying to get to Town East, no
It backs
matter
up.
which way you go, you're backed up onto the interstate
Yes.
because of traffic. And that thing has been rebuilt, what, 3 times since I moved here 10
Mm-hmm.
years ago? And it still can't be working right?
Yeah, that's a tech dot issue.
Highways and freeways, I'm the person, I've been dealing with it for 16 years here in the town. We built interchange one time, but I'm happy to talk with you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Yes, Miss, you have.
Is there a way to find out what streets are on the list?
Yes.
To be maintained?
Good question. Yes.
My street's on there.
Yes, yes. Actually, that's my next slide coming up here. So as far as the street bonds, as I mentioned earlier, in the fall of 2016, the citizens approved the street bond election and this was for 100.8 miles of residential streets. So we sold our first bonds last year. So we were selling $25 million every other year for 10 years. The first round was in 2016, and those areas, A and B, are complete. And then this fiscal year was the other half of the $25 million was spent to cover areas A and B in 2017. You can see area A is about 30% complete, area B about 50%. This link here on the website, www.cityofmesquite.com, Real Texas Roads. If you go to that link on the website, it'll take you right to maps where they're interactive and you can see which streets have already been done and which ones are scheduled. You'll see which ones are part of A and B for this year. Now, council will get a list of the potential streets for the next round. We'll be selling more bonds in 2018 for the next round, next 2 years' worth of streets to be repaired. So in this first round, we'll have accomplished about 10 miles of streets. So it'll be about 10 miles of streets they do about half of that over a 2-year period of time. Okay, so, but I would go to that website link and look there and also watch the next few council meetings this fall. They'll be talking about the next round of streets to be addressed.
Is there a way to give some input?
Sure, you can give input. Yes, yes, yes.
I'm Jerry Denton, I'm the deputy city manager. And just so you understand how the process is, we have to make sure that all the underground utilities are also up to date and replaced before we come in and rework a residential street. So you'll see us come through and do water lines, and then you'll see us come through and do the sanitary sewer lines. And once we make sure the underground infrastructure is up to code and current, that's when we'll do the surface streets. The question we get asked most frequently is, when's my street going to come in the next 10 years? And I'll tell you, we can't get that far out ahead. There aren't that many of us at the city. I can count the number of engineers we have on one hand, and we try to do everything. But what we will do is, again, you can look on the list of the Real Texas Roads, and if it's a grade 4 street, if your street's a grade 4, we're going to get to it. I can't tell you whether it's next year or 7 years out, but we will get to all those streets that are grade 4 on that list.
Yep.
Again, and council will have options. We generally bundle the ones that are ready to go, 3 or 4 or 5 areas, and we present them to council, and then council selects which areas that the staff works in each year. But we try to stay one year ahead on the roads, and then we get out in front of that with the underground utilities.
Okay,
Alleys that's not paved,
right.
and there's a bunch of them in Mesquite, and they're more in the low-income areas, and some that's in higher income that just in yesteryear wasn't done. I know that's in your area of expertise because it's so much underground. Is that something that's...
Well, the alleys, I know there's a budget amount every year for alley repair work, easements.
No, let me handle that
Okay.
question,
All right.
Debbie. We have alleys that are used for access, and those are generally the rear entry homes. So they generally have the driveway comes to the alley. Those are paved. Those are the ones that we schedule about 6 alleys a year for reconstruction. We try to keep them all passable. If you're talking about the grass alleys and a lot of the older neighborhoods, those are utility easements. And Encore and Atmos and everybody put their utilities in too shallow for us to ever come back in and pave them. And they're not meant for regular traffic. I mean, so where there's a grass alley, generally there's a front entry home with the driveway and the garage on the front side. So there's really no plans to pave those. It'd be very expensive. We'd have to relocate and move all the utilities at your taxpayer nickel. So generally that'll be, maybe someday we'll get to that point when we're cash flush, but it won't be in my lifetime.
Yeah.
So we'll try to keep it. Now, if there's a problem with drainage, we'll come in and regrade the alleys. If we need to do some repairs, put some fill in, take some dirt out, we will handle that. You just need to make a request to the Public Works Department, and we'll get that addressed for you.
I did just work on a project years ago in Plano where they resurfaced or put in new alleys completely and multiple those units, sequential subdivisions, because their situation could have been different there.
Yes.
I was just kind of curious. I'm not with that on the project.
Good question. Good question. So I just have a couple more slides to answer the one lady's question about how much debt does the city have outstanding. Well, just like in your home budget, you have to monitor the level of debt that you have outstanding. You don't want to take on too much debt in your home budget. Well, the city has to be careful, too, not to take on too much debt. So we monitor and control the amount of debt that we have outstanding. We have a debt policy that states that the debt portion of our tax rate, remember I said there's maintenance and operations and interest and sinking fund of the debt, the tax rate, the portion for debt cannot exceed 35%. And that's a good level for a city our size. So this chart shows you the debt percentage for the past 3 years as a percentage of the tax rate. So you can see we've been, hovering below that 35%. And this is 3 years back and then 7 years going forward. We have a 10-year capital plan. We project out. We look at our debt service level and see how much can the city handle, and we have to monitor that. So we keep it below that 35%. The next slide will answer the question about how much debt do we have outstanding. Now keep in mind, most cities in Texas, all over the country, actually issue bonds for major capital projects. So City of Mesquite is not any different than anybody else. So this chart shows you the outstanding debt as of the end of last September for all of these comparable cities. It shows you governmental debt, enterprise debt, and then the total debt for those cities and what it equals to as far as the amount per capita. So for the size of that city, how much debt per person in that city. So you can see Mesquite is way at the low end. And the average for all of these cities is $2,267 per capita, and Mesquite is well below that at $1,696. So our debt level is very manageable. But we did have outstanding at the end of last fiscal year $242 million in outstanding bonds. That's general government bonds for streets and roads and things like that, and then water, sewer, infrastructure bonds or drainage or any other bonds like that for the enterprise funds. So that's total debt. Now, I think at this point, Ted Chin is going to come up and take you through your last polling question. And then we have another fun thing for you to do.
Should be fun. So the last question is, what is the monthly city tax bill on the average home in Mesquite? Do you remember what that is? Monthly, broken down by monthly. We've got a choice of $154 a month, $1,054 a month, $54 a month, or you just can't count that high. Monthly. So if you kind of remember that annual figure, you can just divide by 12. Keep you on your toes. Okay. Looks like we got a majority for C, which is $54.82. You would be right. The average monthly city tax bill for Mesquite is $54.82. Or if you break that down per day, it's roughly $1.80 a day. And think about what that means. Okay, this is your tax dollar, your property tax dollar, which supports the general fund. And what that enables to do is to give you 24-hour EMS response. Okay? Whenever you need help or just dial 911. It's there within 5 minutes or less. 24-hour fire protection. 24-hour police protection. Streets, albeit we're trying to do catch up, but good streets to travel down where your car doesn't fall apart. Traffic, free flowing city streets with our traffic signalization system. Neighborhood services, animal control. Quality parks and recreation centers. That includes swimming pools. We have 3 swimming pools. We have inspection programs out there to make sure that our restaurants are providing safe food for public consumption. We've got our economic development efforts to attract more businesses and industry to Mesquite, so to help shift that tax burden from y'all to those corporations, which is always good. Health services, environmental code, health, human resources, planning, development, and many more. So basically, that's less than a coffee at Starbucks. So we think that, yeah, we've got, we got one at across from the mall. There's also one that I use quite a bit over there at 30 and Beltline. But yeah, we think it's a great return on your investment. For just basically a cup of coffee a day, you get all of that and much more. So now it's your turn. We're going to shift roles here a little bit, and you're going to be the city council members, and you are going to get to choose where you're going to allocate some money. And actually, this will help us see where your priorities are. And we call this a bucket exercise. You're being handed out some play money, which represents $650. It's in $10 increments. You can't take it downstairs to the tax office and try to, pay your tax bill with that. It won't work. It's just for today's illustration purposes only. But we're going to ask you.
You can use it on the water bill, right?
Well, you can try. But it's in $10 increments, and what we have up here is 20 buckets that represent pretty much the core services that we provide. Of course, we provide a whole myriad of services, but these are really the 20 core services that most other cities provide. And you'll see in a little bit what those services are. But we want you to come up, take the next 5 minutes or so to allocate your money where you think your priorities are. We'll be using this information to kind of get a sense of what your priorities are, but now you can get a sense of just how tough it is to allocate resources when they're limited. You'll have an opportunity here in the future, August 7th, 21st, and September 5th, we have our council meetings. We'll have public hearings where you can provide input on the real budget and how you want to see your tax dollars spent. So that's what's coming up in the near future. So mark your calendars for public hearings on the budget for those council meetings, 7 o'clock here in this facility.
Will these be posted again in the water bill newsletter?
They should be, but generally this is information is on our website. Yeah. Right. And just so you know, we'll also be launching a citizen survey in the next couple months. We're going to reach over 6,000 households where we're going to actually get your, statistically valid input and get a broad picture of what the community wants and how well we're doing as far as delivering services. So that'll be more scientific than what we've done today. So with that, if there are any questions, last questions on the budget process, I'll go ahead and bring up Mayor Stan Pickett to close out the meeting.
Do any of you have questions for Debbie or Ted? My mind, I space out like that occasionally, just about what they've done. Yes, sir.
I have a question. It's not for either one of them. It may be for all of them. Where's the city of Mesquite at in relation to renewable energy?
Good question.
Now I have to go look for help. Renewable energy. Well, I mean, so while he's thinking of an answer,
just to let you know, give you a little heads up, not that it's a big deal. I'm going to be at the city council meeting.
Good.
On the 7th.
Good.
And I'm at the deadline for being on on the agenda.
Okay.
Because it's a major concern. Not only panels, but anything and everything, because I've gone to meetings in the city of Dallas for Dallas 2030.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's 2030, 2035, where they have a goal, a deadline that they're shooting for a certain percentage.
And the really the shortest answer or the best answer I can give you right now is that we don't have a program or a policy in that regard. That, to my knowledge, I think that they're shaking their heads. And real quick, I want not to get away from your question. I'll come back to it. Our city manager and our mayor pro tem and one of our other council members had driven down to Austin this morning to testify under some bills. They were testifying in House hearings, Senate hearings, and things, and that's the reason they're not here tonight. So we thank this guy, Ted, I'm just kidding, Ted, for filling in tonight for our city manager. So, but in terms of a specific policy, we don't have anything in writing. Yes, Mr. Dittman.
Mayor, the codes do cover solar panel installations, so that there's no issue with that.
But not as a
But we
city.
do not permit like wind turbines because that's a mixed bag. It produces good energy, but most of the neighbors don't like to look at them. They do make noise. Then we have a lot of different special interest groups. So right now, about the only thing you can do as far as renewable energy are solar panels in town, and those are per the building code, but there's no wind turbines permitted. And I don't know what other types of renewable that you're talking about other than that, because we don't have any geothermal to tap into.
We need to stay in our granite properties as part of the 2030 program. It's actually the big building operations we're trying to get it more green.
Okay. Well, this building
That
here
we've
is
done.
LEED Silver certified. So this building here is LEED Silver certified, and we do participate in that process on some of our major building, initiatives. So we do encourage it. It's not mandatory for other buildings that go in Mesquite, but most business owners are pretty smart, and they know if they can cut their energy costs long term, they save some money. So they are investing in enhanced insulation and smarter buildings than they have in the past.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So on the solar panels, do they have to get a permit to put those? And some of them are rented or leased, and some are actually purchased.
Well, ma'am, how you get the panels is irrelevant to the city. What we want to make sure is that the roof can structurally support the weight, so you do have to pull a building permit, and one of our building inspectors would then do a quick check and get the information from whoever's providing the solar panels on your building. I know there's a lot of different ways to get them installed now. So, and that technology changes constantly, and they're getting better and lighter and lasting longer. So I expect just continuous improvement and that to be more prevalent than it is today in the city.
Any other questions for these guys right now before we're going to give our council members that are here? That's all right. You'll have a chance. I'm going to open this back up in a few minutes. I always like to say thank you all for coming. The reason I mentioned it's summertime, and for you guys to show up tonight, and a lot of new faces. We really appreciate it. We're trying to just be more open to try to get as much information as we can out, because I've had a business here I still have for 30 plus years, and communication is always the key. And getting the information out in a town like Mesquite, it'd be great if we all subscribed to a newspaper, but that doesn't happen anymore. So when we start saying, well, where do I get this information? Yeah, we send a water bill out. If we sent all this out, it would be about as thick as Debbie's financial thing every month to get everything out. So we try to do that with not only our website, but Facebook and what are the others? Twitter, Nextdoor, and those kind of things. And then if you're like below 30, you've got Snapchat and Instagram and all that other stuff. Anyway, we always like to give our elected officials a chance, and we have our Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, Dan Alleman. Dan, if you'd like to come up and say a few words, and then.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to be here tonight. Appreciate seeing all of you all here this evening and hearing about the budget of the city of Mesquite. And I do too. I want to thank Debbie Mole and also Ted Chin for coming and for their presentations, and they did a great job tonight. Why don't we give them a hand right now and just thank them for their work. I do want to share with you, we were at the retreat, the budget retreat that we had last week, and I'm very encouraged. I already finished my first year as city council member and starting into my second year, and I want to tell you, the economy is good right now. And if you look around our city, you're going to see a lot of things that are happening. And as we were hearing Tim James the other day, who heads up a lot of the construction going around, you see a lot of streets that are being worked on, residential streets that are being worked on around our city. There's a lot of construction. He showed us a list of 21 items that is being done right now in our city of Mesquite. We're actually seeing things right now that you can probably say it hasn't happened in about 15 years at least in the economy of our city. One of those is that we're having homes being built out there on I-20, and that's a great thing to see. I talked to the man out there in charge, and he said that they almost have all their homes sold already and ready to go into phase 2. And these homes are being sold on average for $320,000 each. Phase 2 is going to be an additional 68 homes. That's all out there on I-20 and Lawson. That's happening on the south side. Then you look to the east side, and you got Ashley Furniture, distributing company. They're getting ready to come in, and that's going to be the distributor for the entire region of our area. And that's coming up very soon on the east side. Then you look to the west side, you'll see the new neighborhood Walmart. Then to the north side, you'll see out there the construction's being done in the corridor, Gus Thomason corridor. And I just say that to let you know the economy is good in Mesquite, and there's a lot of great things going on. And of course, the word of the Lord says, without a vision, the people perish. And there's great vision here in our city, and that's why we got those stakeholders working on I-20 corridor and also on the downtown area of Mesquite. And they're working hard to try to help and develop that plan that we want to go after in the future years. And just like Ted Chin said, you don't know how long we're going to be with this rise in the economy. Economists, they tell you what goes up will start coming down sometime sooner or later. But while it's up, we want to do all that we can and move forward. Public safety continues to stay at the very top of our concerns, and we want to make sure we're going to be adding to the salaries for the public safety, and we want them to stay competitive, definitely, and to see more officers coming to our city. So I just want to encourage you all tonight. I'm excited. It's my second year. I'm very excited to see what's happening around our city. I know we have challenges. We're going to work on those, but thank you so much for coming to this meeting tonight. Appreciate you all being here. Thank you, Mayor.
And also tonight, we have one of our newest council members, Councilman Tandy Burrows. If you'd like to say anything, Councilman. Honorable.
Thank you. This is my first budget retreat that we've gone through, and it didn't take long to find out that all of our departments want a whole lot more than what we can afford. But we try to take the money and stretch it as far as we can, but there's no way that we can, without increasing someone's taxes, which we know no one wants their taxes increased, we can only stretch it so far. But we will work and try to fund everything possible that we can. To your question earlier, I was a firefighter here in the city of Mesquite for 30 years before I retired 2.5 years ago. And I think we have a great fire department, a police department. 32 years ago when I hired on, we were riding fire trucks that had no top on them. They were open cabs. It was pretty tough back then. But over the years, and especially after we passed the 4B tax, where we could take and fund fire trucks and the building of the new fire stations and stuff out of that, our equipment just got tremendously better. And by able to take that 4B money and take that, we were able to increase our salaries. And there is a survey that we do. I can't remember exactly how many years ago, but there are 7 cities that are comparable to Mesquite. And we have always tried to stay within 5%. Is that correct, Mayor? Isn't it 5%? To the median of that survey. And I can tell you, going to a lot of firefighter conferences and talking to other firefighters all over the state of Texas, we're one of the best paid departments around. Now, we can always, you'll never find a firefighter or police officer that'll tell you that they wouldn't like to have a raise. But, everyone would like to make more money. But we're pretty comparable to all the rest of the cities around. With the size of our city and the taxes that we get in, we're doing pretty good. And I'm in the retirement system now, and the end of each month they put a check in my deal. I'm not worried about anything about our retirement system. I know our retirement system is very good funded. I'm not upset at all. I mean, I don't feel like that we're going to become the Dallas area. I know it's set good. There's good laws and everything. So I feel good about our retirement system. I don't see anything wrong with it. So, but thank y'all very much for coming.
Now my notes. Okay. Something about standing behind these things. It's kind of crazy. You know, as I listened tonight and listened to some of the things you'd ask about, I always try to make notes and so see if I can help with a few of them while we're still here tonight. When they started the process, and some of you have seen and heard this before, they actually talked about our council priorities. And so the things that you saw at the very beginning were the things that we feel like as a group, and we've met several times, and public safety is always number one, but neighborhoods and streets and things like that as well. And if you look at our budget process, and if you kind of heard what they were discussing tonight, the budget process is not, we talked about this last Friday, it's not just lines on a page and dollars and cents. It's how do those dollars and cents that our taxpayers pay and our sales tax generates, how does that impact us as a community? How does that tax dollar help you get that fire truck there or that ambulance there? How do they get the police return? How do we get more streets done? Those are the things that we're trying to do with our budgets now. And it sounds, well, that sounds simple. But in reality, a lot of times it's like, well, last year we spent $1,000, this year we're going to spend $1,100, and we just go on. Today it's, last year we spent $1,000, we didn't get the return, we're not going to spend the $1,000 in that department, we're going to take it over here where we can get more bang for our buck. And so we really do work and analyze that. We talked a little about our T25, somebody asked about that. You know, we talk about code offenders, and everybody can point to something probably on your street or in your neighborhood that's always bad. These people don't take care of it. Well, this T25 program is predominantly commercial, but there are some residential areas as well, and we've just upped our code enforcement, and it's really at the direction of the council, and we've gone out and we've said, you know what? We've written tickets and we've cited you and you've done all this other thing and you're not cooperating. So from the compliance standpoint, it's gotten better because we have started, you know, we're not kicking the doors in, but in some respects we're trying to do just that. We're trying to come up and say, if you're not going to be willing to participate and make your property look like the rest of our city wants to look like and what we feel like we need to look like, then, you know, we're going to fine you, cite you, and if we have to, shut you down. And we've actually had some buildings sell. We've had some buildings torn down. So we're aggressively trying to do that. And that takes dollars. That's where part of this budget money goes, is to working on that. You know, I'm always surprised when I realize that my property taxes only fund 36% of the budget. Everybody always says, well, I'll pay my taxes. Well, overall, for a $230 million budget, only 35% of that comes out of our property taxes. And it's a lot of other taxes that come in and pay that amount. Streets. Biggest question we got now. All right, we passed that. We gave you the authorization. We passed that money. When are you going to fix my street? I want my street fixed. And we hear that a lot. And we want to fix your street too. And I think Mr. Dibben did a good job. And it's like we could come out and fix your street, but if your water and sewer underneath there needs to be replaced in the next 3 or 4 years, we would fix your street. Then we would come tear that street out, replace all that infrastructure, and have to do it again. So we're trying to be strategic, and if we don't get to you fast enough, I can apologize right now. I'm sorry we're not getting it. But we are trying to do the Grade 4 streets, and we're trying to work on that as fast as we can. Just a couple of quick things. You know, when we talk about debt service, somebody asked about that. You know, he mentioned equipment. We're very strategic in what we're bonding for and buying and purchasing. We would love to have another spray park or splash park or water park in the city, but it's several million, well, probably more than $10 million to build one, and we just don't feel like it's worth adding to that debt right now. We'd like a new rec center. They do a great job with what we have, but that's probably a $15 to $20 million debt service thing, and that's something, again, we just don't feel like that you as citizens want to increase. We don't want to put any more tax burden on you at this time. There will come a time, we hope, that everything increases so that we can do those things, and we know the needs are there. The needs are greater than the necessities or the monies at some time. And I'll leave you with a couple of things and then see if you have any questions. Freestanding Starbucks. We, yeah, well, I know we'd love to have it, and a Chick-fil-A on South Mesquite. Everybody wants a Chick-fil-A at South Mesquite. You know, it's funny, I was kind of privileged to go to an international shopping center show back in May. We met with, I don't know, 12 or 14 of the big business owners of shopping center owners and property owners in Mesquite, Texas, over about less than 48 hours in about a day and a half. And one person told us they were, and I'll believe it when I see it, but they were working on a deal to buy an existing gas station on this side of town, and I'm not going to say where, and don't go out and tell everybody it's coming, but they were working on a deal, and they were telling us, we've been working for about a year to try to buy this gas station, tear it down, with the intent to try to get Starbucks to put a freestanding with drive-through. But unfortunately, that's just it's a hope and a wish and a maybe. I know the developer could make a lot of money if he did that, so we said, whatever you want us to do to help you, we'll help you. So we get to see those kind of things, and people always say, well, what are they really doing for us? We're out working. These council members are out working every day. They're talking to you. They're talking to citizens. We talk to businesses. We talk to businesses all the time, and we're trying to do our best to kind of help with this budget process of lowering those budgets and helping in that regard. A couple of things that you've seen at your desk. I saw our new bandit sign. The Mesquite newspaper put a story out on Facebook, and their story showed a garage sale sign and saying Mesquite's going to go after bandit signs. We're not going after garage sale signs. I saw a whole bunch of comments. Well, that's not right. Why is the city doing that? I think everybody knows we're talking about the We Buy Houses and all that kind of stuff that pop up every weekend all over town. I've seen pictures of hundreds of people, these signs that have been stuck in all the medians and things. So we're going to aggressively and actively go, and these are at your place. And if you know anybody you want to help, I'd encourage you to look at that and see this. And we're trying to clean up the clutter as best we can. And then you talk about information, the Mesquite Messenger. If you wanted to go on our website, you can actually get text alerts and email alerts about meetings and things like that. And you can actually, they'll send you that information. So with that, I don't want to keep you too long, but any questions while you've got me? Yes, ma'am.
Where do you plan to increase the library?
We talk about that every year. It gets back to always give a short and a long answer. The short answer is currently in our budgets year, there's not anything out there other than books and some things internally. We know there's a great need in Southeast Mesquite for a library. People say, well, why do you need a library? Nobody reads books anymore. Our library, when you look every year, not only just the number of books and things that get checked out, but the usage goes up. Our doors swing more. We have more people going to the library today than ever before. We would love to, and we want to continue looking at that. It's resources. It's everything.
Programs and videos and all manner of.
The fact that I work here and I see and talk to people every day, literally citizens every day in this city, you'd be shocked at the people that don't have. They have cell phones, but they may not be able to afford even a data plan. And they use our library to go get online to look for jobs. It's people go, well, everybody's got. No, not everybody does. We recognize that, so I think it's important. I appreciate that question. I know we've been here longer than we should, but yes, sir.
Something you don't hear much about, and that's the Chamber of Commerce.
It's fascinating. We have an active Chambers of Commerce. They're probably not as active as we'd like for them to be, and so it's a good point. I know I've been a member since 1984, and we utilize them from a city standpoint with some cooperation. We have a business and retention group that just got started this past year. That's actually a partnership with the city, Workforce Dallas, the Chamber, and the school district, and I think there's a couple of others that we look to both retain businesses and create jobs and things like that. They have somewhat of a ceremonial role. We do a lot of openings, thank goodness. Last year we had over 400 certificate of occupancies that we were passed out in 2016 or were granted or given. So they're active, but we'd like to see them more active. Yes, ma'am. Sure. No, we try to keep this to an hour. Sorry we've gone all over tonight.
The function of budget, the more new business we have, the more higher cost businesses and higher cost housing that we have, the less
Economic development.
Economic development. So who is on that economic development team, and what are they doing to try to get, I mean, my perspective, okay, I haven't been in Mesquite all my life, so I came in from an outside area and thought, why don't these people have this? And when you look at, and I hear this one more time, I might scream, we don't have the money to do it, or we don't have the people in the city that make the money to do it. And I'm like, wait a minute, Duncanville sure as hell didn't. Rockwall, or not, yeah, Rowlett didn't. Garland doesn't, and yet look at the Rowlett downtown. Look at Duncanville, what they've done with their interstate, whatever that is, that 67 or whatever that runs through there. They've got, you know, Costco's and restaurants galore and athletic activity facilities. I mean, Plano makes a lot of money, but they've got people up there, industries up there that are building those huge athletic facilities, and then they come from all over. My grandson plays in, you know, every year in a Mesquite basketball team because that's where the facilities are. You know, if we had them here, people would come here instead. I mean, last week he was in a tournament in Duncanville. Right. Why can they, and don't, you know, I don't want to hear that was a, you know, an up-and-coming kind of environment. It wasn't. It was depressed, and yet, you know, you build it, they will come. Right. And it's like, how do we get to that point and stop saying, oh, woe is Mesquite, and start being, you know, we can do this. We can make this a wonderful place to be.
And even those of us that have been here for the long time, I see it kind of as I've always seen it as a glass more than half full personally, and that's because I've been here my whole life. It's fascinating when you start comparing to other cities around the Metroplex and where does growth happen and things like that. We had, if you were here in 1960s and 70s and 80s, and none of the rest of those towns were growing and exploding, and Mesquite's building Town East Mall and 635, and we're building, you know, at that time, the most expensive football stadium in the area, and we were getting bashed because we were building a big football. You know, we had a big spurt. And I'm not saying it's over with, but we had a big spurt when a time that other areas were not. One of the fascinating things when we talk about some of the questions you just presented were, you look at Town East Mall, and we have one of the basically two malls in the entire North Texas region that's still vibrant. North Park Mall and Town East are the two most vibrant. Now you can argue about Hewlin, but Hewlin's not quite like Town East is. And malls today are shuttering and closing. We're adding a Dick's Sporting Goods. We're adding 150,000 square feet across the street of retail. It's interesting. We are continuing to garner and get new businesses and new buildings going on in Mesquite, Texas. It's just that our mall's been out there, well, it's the mall. Well, look across the street where Home Depot and all that stuff was 20 years ago, that wasn't there. You look at a lot of these things, so I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but we have had a lot of our growth prior to a lot of these other cities. Some of it is economics. I'm not going to try to wash over anything. Our average income in Mesquite, Texas, for household income throughout our entire economy is about $48,000. When you compare with some of the cities that you mentioned, we are much lower. And when we go out and talk to people, I kind of hate this example, but I'll just give it to you anyway. Kroger was looking to build a brand new supercenter like Forney's about a year and a half ago. I met with the developers, met with them. We had a site picked out. They were going to build this brand new, beautiful Kroger. And their corporate people flew down from, I forget where they were, somewhere up north, and came down, looked at the demographics, looked at the city, told them, nope, not doing it, turned around and flew back. And we said, wait a minute, we've spent 2 months with these people trying to get this new development out here. And they said, not our target, not what we're looking for. And they were talking about 5-mile circles, $70,000 household income, and certain other demographics that they, not about race or anything, but just purely about education and type of jobs and all that kind of stuff, and that just wasn't in what they were looking for. So I think we do a really good job attracting new businesses. I wish I could tell you some of the things that we have in the pipeline that we're talking to, and some we get and some we don't. And it's not a high-end business. Snuffers is getting ready to tear down one of the buildings and put a new stuff. That's not a huge deal, but, you know, it's something different. We talk at this thing at show I was talking to you, it's a fast casual Japanese-type restaurant that the only place in Dallas-Fort Worth that they have one is at North Park Mall. And they stood right in front of us and said, we want to be in Mesquite, Texas. But they want to be in a certain place in Mesquite in a certain location at a certain time. And they said, we may have to wait 2 years before we can get there because they want to be in a certain place. So the long answer is I think we've got a lot of growth. Some of the development follows the growth. That's a lot of it too. They follow where other things are going on, and I've gotten to know some of the mayors around town. And you talk about Mayor Masso that just left 9 years up in Frisco, and everybody wants to be him. I mean, if you look at what they've done up there, billions and billions of dollars that they've brought to their city. We are working at it. It's like, my business is across here at the shopping center built in the 70s. It desperately needs to be redone, and we're trying to work with the owners of that, not just me, but the city, to get something done there. And we're trying to rehab those things. And it's not like your city leadership doesn't want those things to happen. I can guarantee you that. It's just trying to get the right type of developments. And some of the businesses, we talked with an international company that's got facilities in 6 countries that's looking to be in Texas a few weeks ago. But we're one of 3 Texas cities and one of 5 cities in the United States they're looking at. And nothing. It's huge. It's $200 million and 1,000 jobs, and it's industrial. But it's something that would be great. But we're looking. We're working. We're working at it. So we do incentives. A lot of people, you may or may not like tax incentives, but that's to be competitive in the Dallas-Fort Worth market especially. You have to do. We don't like to give away. We like to be at least break even. So if they're going to come in and invest $200 million, there's a certain formula that Debbie can tell you, and some of these people can tell you that works, where the increase in taxes, we may give them 75% of it back, but we still get an increase in taxes. So, but we're trying. We really are. We do meet. You can't put all this stuff out on social media. Oh, guess where we talked to today? Guess who we talked to today? Guess who we talked to today?
Well, yeah, but what is going out on social media is new business in Forney, new business here, new business there. It's like, okay, but wait.
And it's fascinating. I say this a lot. We issued 400 certificate of occupancies last year. We have it's not Mr. See, now I'm doing it. Gaddy's Pizza. We have, what's the other one coming to the mall that we just talked about? Peter Piper. I mean, some of the things that we've never had in Mesquite, and those are just a couple. Rusty Taco, not our taco, the other taco place. Fuzzies. You haven't been to Fuzzies, you ought to go. It's really good. That's exactly right. And are they $25, $30 a plate sit down dinner places? No, but they're what? I don't disagree with that either. And even the investment that goes on in town, and you may or may not like Joe's Pizza. That's not the point. People say, why did Country Burger leave? I don't know. I didn't own the building. That was out of my control. But they've done a great job of reinvesting in that building. And I don't know the guys, and I'm not saying y'all ought to run down there, but they went into an old building that had a lot of problems and turned into a really nice sit-down restaurant in downtown Mesquite. So there's a lot of reinvestment going on. And you're right. We need to put more and more and more of that out as much as we can. Sorry, I kept you too long. I can talk about this stuff all night. Thank y'all for coming.